Dear learners, welcome to UGC MOOC on Tourism Planning and Sustainable Development. Now, we are going to study the topic tourism planning, significance, constraints, grey areas and scope. So, after completing this topic, you will be able to know about the tourism planning and its significance. You will be understand the constraints of tourism planning. You will come to know about the various grey areas in tourism planning, and you will come to know about the scope of tourism planning. Tourism is one of the numerous activities in the society or an area that call for tourism and coordination. Tourism planning, like any planning, is purpose oriented, determined to accomplish some of the objectives by corresponding to the accessible resources and programs with the necessities and desires of the people. Tourism as a whole is an activity which is judged as the segment of physical, environmental, social and economic planning. It is seen as a business activity in which the public or private and individual stakeholders have different perspectives to plan it. But the role of government agency in developing countries is central to tourism planning. Dear learners, let us understand the significance of tourism planning. At all levels of tourism, in order to achieve success, planning is vital for managing and developing tourism. This has been exemplified by many tourism destinations throughout the globe. That planning that also long term can also lead to economic, socio-cultural and ecological benefits to the both local community and tourists. Uncontrolled tourism activity without any planning has resulted in negative impacts, environmental, socio-cultural, ecological. Further, it also leads to repercussions among the host and the guest with regard to local resources and affects the carrying capacity of the place. Also, this results in loss of competitiveness in terms of infrastructure and insane environment available at unplanned destinations. Here, everyone sees his economic benefits ignoring the socio-cultural and ecological benefits. The countries for which tourism is a nascent or a new activity, then planning can help in asserting its resources and provide a blueprint for further development. It can also prevent mismanagement, poor planning and loss of authenticity of valuable inventories such as culture, heritage, cuisine, festival events, etc. And the countries where tourism is an important sector, there the tourism planning can rejuvenate this segment and improve its potential practicability. There are manifold benefits of undertaking planning at national, regional and local level. They can be summarized as follows, that is, development of linkages and coordination of tourism with other sectors through policy formulation, ascertaining the objectives and tourism policy in order to realize the goals, integrating tourism policy at national, regional and local level helps in the harmonized growth of the various elements of the tourist sector through coordination and involvement. It helps to maximize the benefits to local community, poor people, etc., and help in impartial distribution of the benefits to everyone. It helps to minimize the negative impacts of the tourism, if any. Development focus, training services, it promotes rational thinking and development for tourism growth and expansion, helps in creation of guidelines and standards which help in preparing detailed plans for developing tourism destinations and circuits. It helps in incessant monitoring of the developmental activities of tourism, positioning tourism as a major engine of economic growth, developing suitable marketing plans with realistic, practical and sustainable targets, employing sustainable environmental practices, review of tourism policies and their evaluation, development of planning criteria and analysis of resources, providing adequate recreation opportunities and facilities in the tourist destination and tourist circuits. In order to develop tourism, planning is done at all levels of tourism through policy formulation and planning activities. There are few constraints in tourism planning. Dear learners, let's understand these. The constraints in tourism planning can vary from one location to another, and depending on the local resources present or not. There are a large number of constraints which may hamper the tourism planning process. They may vary from institutional to logistical to technical to cultural and to technical and distributed in excess of a apparently never-ending continuum. It may be less involvement of the local community in tourism planning process, scarcity of financial resources, lack of expertise, lack of research activities, lacking organization skills, need more time, limited natural resources, destruction of flora, fauna and biodiversities, and disease in the satisfaction level of local community and vice versa. The constraint in the tourism planning are limited budget is a constraint in tourism planning, accuracy and reliability of a market data, low priority according to the tourism sector, the poor quality of the infrastructure and facilities present at the attractions, quality of transportation service, multiplicity and high level of taxation, facilitation of entry of tourists at ports, airports, seaports, land ports. Poor communication and awareness is too a constraint in tourism planning. Conflict of interest, lack of community participation in the planning process. Hence, whenever policies are framed, the local community should be involved at all levels so that tourism policies not lead to planning failures. Management constraints in tourism planning are like legislative constraints and adherence to rules, regulations, executive orders, environmental constraints, carrying capacity constraints, apt understanding of ground realities, inactivity dilemma. Now, dear learners, let's have a look on what are the various grey areas in tourism planning process. Although there is indication that nearly tourism destinations have established without sensible strategic and united planning, many of them experienced unexpected effects which have led to their decline and fall. Many explanations are offered for tourism planning, not least the support that planning is the finest way of increasing the vital life cycle of a destination by offering a means of anticipation, variation, changing to the demands of the change, and discovering new opportunities. Some of the likely effects of the lack of commitment to integrated tourism planning as a result of the grey areas in tourism planning include physical impacts, which are permanent alteration of the physical environment, permanent alteration of the historical cultural landmarks and resources, overcrowding and congestion, pollution. At some destinations, the lack of tourism planning also lead to the grey areas in form of human impacts, which are minus accessibility to services and tourist areas for local residents, rising in local hatred, hatred of tourists on the part of the local communities, hammering of cultural identities, lack of education of tourism employees in skills and hospitality. At some destinations, the lack of tourism planning also lead to the grey area in form of marketing impacts, which are failure to capitalize on new marketing opportunities, erosion of market shares due to actions of competitive destination areas, lack of sufficient awareness in prime markets, lack of clear image of destination area in potential markets. All in all, unwanted expenses, heavy rush, sanitary condition, infrastructure arrangement, transport facilities, safety, security, service and accommodation, guidance, corruption, pollution, healthcare, local language and many more factors act as the grey area which hamper tourism planning. Dear learners, let's have a brief outlook of what are the scope of the tourism planning. Tourism planning has come a long way in the tourism development process, but still there is ample scope for betterment. The scope of tourism planning can be like this: improvement of transport, high standard accommodation, different tourist activities, new product development, better marketing and promotion, institutional framework, quality in research, legislation and regulation, quality standards in tourism services. Dear learners, let's summarize this topic. Tourism planning plays a pivotal role in the development of the tourism. It helps us to plan tourism at all levels in a coordinated and proper way. The important aspects involved in tourism planning are reviewing the ground position with respect to resources available, capital, material, human, setting objective, appraisal of the various plans, selection of the most appropriate plan in tandem with the local community support and approach, and achieving the desired results. Though the nature and type of planning varies from one country to other, ranging from the developed to least developed countries, but the tourism planning should have a firm foundation for which good research and study of the grassroots level is very essential. Also, the plan need to be revised again and again based on the study results and likely future trends, but retaining the basic structure. But there may be a large number of constraints which may hamper the tourism planning process. They may vary from institutional to logistical to technical to cultural and to technical and disruptive in excess of apparently never-ending continuum. Also, the grey areas or loopholes of tourism planning need to be plugged to achieve the desired result. Unwanted expenses, heavy rush, sanitary condition, infrastructure, arrangement, transport facilities, safety and security, service, accommodation, guidance, beggars, corruption, pollution, healthcare, local language and many more factors, they act as grey areas, hampering a tourism planning. Tourism planning has come a long way in the tourism development process of India, but still there is ample scope for the betterment in terms of marketing, transport, accommodation, infrastructure, research, legislation, institutional framework and quality standards. Thank you.